Oh, okay. So this is the first webinar I'm actually doing for the ITMPI. So I thought I would cover the IT Project Lifecycle and the pitfalls to watch out for, purely because it's one of the things that I really wish I'd known when I started becoming an IT project manager. Hold on a minute. Let me move to the next slide. So what is the IT Project Lifecycle? Well, basically, an IT project starts off, in theory, with a business case, and then a project justification document, and then it moves through to initiation, development, test, launch, and handover to operations. And of course, there's one phase that I have missed out, which is quite important, which is defining requirements. Essentially allows a company to go from having an idea to actually delivering a tangible result out to either the company concerned or to the wider world. That's why it's one of the most important concepts in project management for any project manager who wants to get involved in IT to understand about. Various phases. Before it actually gets initiated, and by that I mean actually started, you really need a business case. Now, a lot of companies kind of fudge the business case because there really isn't much of a business case behind the actual project. It's basically what we call a vanity project. By that I mean it's a very senior person with a company thinks, wow, I would really like this to be done. There's no real business justification for it, but I've got a bit of money sitting around, and I would like to see this project started. But what you would really hope is that there is a genuine business case and a genuine business reason why your project has to be delivered. And another reason for that is because if you don't have a genuine business case with a genuine business reason, you really won't get any priority in terms of budget, in terms of getting the resources that you require with regard, and also in regard to getting the input you actually require from key stakeholders within the business. Project justification basically involves the bigger projects and programs. You know, when you've got budgets sort of in $500,000, $1 million or more. And it's just another step whereby the business case basically requires further defining, just to really reinforce why the company should be spending this amount of money and this amount of resources on actually getting this project or program off the ground. Into what the key IT project phases are. You've got project initiation. If you've got a very small IT project, this will basically just be a one-page document defining what it is that you're actually delivering, when, and for how much. If it is anything bigger, or if your company actually is utilizing a project management methodology like Prince2 or PMP, then it will require quite a lot of effort in actually writing this document, initiating the project, and that means getting it off the ground with the resources, with the budget, with getting your project into the PMO schedule so that they know that they should be keeping track of it, and those sorts of things. Requirements gathering is basically going into that project initiation document and the business case in rather more depth. It's basically getting your business analysts to actually determine what exactly it is that you are delivering, and getting the sign-off from the key stakeholders within the business that that is what they want delivered. And is, well, getting a team of developers or team of developers, and essentially tasking them with getting the requirements. There are various ways that this can be done. Agile is very much the in thing at the moment, and not surprisingly, I have to say, because it allows you to develop and define requirements pretty much at the same time. I know that in the US, a lot of the development there is done using what we call waterfall, and that basically means that requirements are defined upfront and then are developed afterwards. In theory, this means that development is easier because all the requirements are being defined up front. In reality, for software development in very fast-moving areas such as mobile apps, the internet, well, basically anything involved with the internet, you would really need Agile because the requirements will be very fluid and just continually change. This is where all the code that you've developed is tested and also checked against the requirements that have been defined to make sure that the code actually does deliver what the business wanted and also that it actually works. That's terribly important. You'd be surprised how many times either it doesn't work or it doesn't actually deliver what the business wanted. You've got deployment and launch. This is basically where you've been given the go-ahead to actually deploy the software and actually launch it. And this in itself, if it's a really big program, can actually be almost a project in its own right, depending on how big a deliverable it is that you're actually launching. In one program I actually managed, which was the relaunch of EuroMillions in the UK, it was actually the largest retail launch in 2009. This particular area actually became, I had 2 project managers just involved with delivering the deployment and the launch. So it can be very big, and a lot of people really just underestimate this. Even if it's a very small project, you still have to be aware that you need to go through certain procedures to actually deploy your software and actually get it launched and for it to actually work. And then lastly, handover to operations. Often a lot of project managers think that once it's launched, that's it. They can just wash their hands of it and just hand it over to operations. But there is a process around this, and if you actually work for a company rather than are interim, and an interim is someone who moves from company to company, just literally delivering a certain project and then moving on to another one. But if you actually are a permanent member of staff and plan to stay at that company, then it's very important that you don't just dump something on operations and you do actually do a proper handover to them. Let me move into why do pitfalls happen. There are a number of reasons. Project managers do believe too much in the process rather than reality. I've actually kind of picked this up through my project management expert, to be perfectly honest, because I do get an awful lot of emails from people asking why, if, for example, they've written a certain project plan or they've got certain risks and issues listed and they've followed the process with regard to the documentation, why the project failed. And the thing is that if you've done the documentation, that is merely an aid to help you to deliver the project. It doesn't mean that the project will just happen. Just because you have a project plan showing that, resource A is supposed to deliver task B by a certain date, it doesn't actually mean that it will happen. An awful lot of work that a project manager does is actually ringing people up for updates and then hassling people. You'd be surprised. Unfortunately, plans just don't happen. So essentially, you have to make things happen rather than just believing in a process. And I've covered in a way, plans are great, but they're just plans. Literally, that is the case. You cannot write a 2,000-line plan and think, oh, it will just happen because I've written it. I wish it was the case, but it's not. And to be perfectly honest, if you write a 20,000-line plan, it still won't happen. It just means that you will spend your entire life updating that plan and not actually getting the project delivered.